Okay, folks, my name is Mark. This is Why I Hate the World. My peoples, where you at? So we have to talk about the elephant in the room, which is, of course, the murder of Brian Thompson. And if you have not been living on a deserted island over the last 2 weeks, you know exactly what happened, but here's a quick recap. I won't go into too much of the facts because no doubt you've been seeing this on the news 24/7. But the short version is that Brian Thompson was the CEO of United Healthcare and he was assassinated. And it was definitely a pre-planned assassination. And it turns out that the guy that did it, which it's looking like he actually did it, they've got the evidence. The guy that did it was named Luigi Mangione. And what happened was that this kid, he was 26 years old. He waited for Brian Thompson outside of an office building because there was a yearly shareholders meeting or some shit like that. And apparently this guy Luigi was tracking him, knew that he was going to be at this meeting, waited outside, and then Brian Thompson walked by, shot him in the back with a ghost gun that was 3D printed and had a silencer. And then Luigi jumps on an e-bike and rides into Central Park in New York and then gets on a bus and gets away. And the only reason they caught him, like it was like the perfect crime, the only reason they caught this guy Luigi is because previously he was inside of the building scoping it out. And apparently there was a cute girl working there and he started flirting and he took his mask off. He was wearing like a COVID mask, right? And he took his mask off in order to flirt with this girl. And that's where the security cameras got a shot of his face. So a few days later, after this story became national headline news, some people recognized him and he got picked up in a McDonald's in Pennsylvania. Pretty crazy fucking story. And it really definitely looks like that this was a form of protest. I am loath to call a violent assassination like this a form of protest, but it seems to be having the effect that Luigi Mangione wanted it to have. And that is, suddenly everybody remembers that healthcare in this country fucking blows. I don't really want to get too much into the rest of it. You know, there's like some other kind of interesting tidbits about this guy and about what happened. Is that apparently on the bullets he wrote the terms deny, delay, and depose on the actual bullets, which actually comes from a book that was written not that long ago, which was all about how healthcare companies deny services and like basically fuck people over. And it appears that that's what happened to this guy Luigi, is that he was in pain from a crippling back injury, and apparently he was not able to get the surgery he needed. So there's been a lot of news stories out there about who this kid is and where he comes from. And it was a little bit surprising to me to see that his background, he's actually upper middle class. Not necessarily rich, but pretty well off. He was able to go to really good schools. Apparently he has a master's degree from Penn State, which, for those of you paying attention, that's the same university that Donald Trump went to. So, you know, somewhat prestigious, right? He spent time in Hawaii. His parents are apparently very well off. He had a good job and stuff like that. So he wasn't like just some crazy destitute homeless person or some shit like that, or a criminal or anything. He was actually somebody that had a bright future ahead of him. And apparently he got this pretty crippling back injury that has just been fucking him up for the last couple of years. And here's the thing, right? He's 26 years old. Well, 26 is the cutoff date for when you can't stay on your parents' health insurance anymore. Now, I don't know if that has anything to do with why he decided to go taxi driver on this CEO or whatever, but pretty sure that probably had something to do with it. Probably that, and probably the fact that his medical treatment was most likely denied by United Healthcare, right? And here's the other thing about it, is that it's not really political. And I think that's resonating with people. This guy, Luigi Mangione, right, does not seem to be overly political himself. Although, from looking from some of his books that he has on Goodreads, apparently he leaned rightward. Like, for example, there's a book called The Woke Mind Virus that he was reading. So, yeah, the dude, it's not like the dude was a progressive or anything like that. It's not like he was a crazy leftist or anything. And I think that's something that the right-wing media in this country is like really, really trying to push. They're really trying to push that, oh, this dude's a nutbag leftist, and this is another example of leftist street violence and all that. They're really doing their best to make this guy Luigi look like he's some kind of like crazy revolutionary. When in real life, like, no, he was essentially, like most people in this country, rightward leaning, but not completely nuts. I mean, I don't know. I mean, if he's reading the woke mind virus, but we don't know if that's what he believed. Just because you read a book doesn't mean that you believe everything in the book or that you follow any particular ideology. That's like me saying like, oh, I read the Turner Diaries and now I'm like a fucking Nazi. It's like, no, I read the Turner Diaries. I actually have read it and I'm like an anti-Nazi. You see what I'm saying? Like, so it's like you can't just judge somebody's politics just because they have a particular book in their reading list. Just like anything, I mean, who knows? Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. We don't know enough about it. But he doesn't seem to be overly political. And I think that's really driving the right wing in this country absolutely fucking nuts. The reason why, it's because this guy, the shooter, Luigi here, is kind of turning into a folk hero. And the right wing in this country really doesn't like that. The Fox News types, Ben Shapiro, all those people, the Matt Walshes, they really don't like the idea that people are just seemingly okay with the murder of this CEO because they are beholden to corporations. Right? And I think it's really telling that, for example, the same day this happened is the day that Daniel Penny was acquitted of murder. He was found like not guilty of murder in the case of Jordan Neely. Do you guys remember that? About a year ago, this guy, Daniel Penny, essentially just strangled a homeless person to death on the subway in New York. Thinking the next video I make is going to be about that because I need to comment on that shit. And he's essentially getting away with murder. And it's really telling that they're trying to turn that guy, Daniel Penny, into a folk hero, and people aren't buying it. Nobody gives a fuck because that dude is a fucking murderer. This guy, Luigi Mangione, he's a murderer too. And people are like cool with it because the guy he killed is somewhat directly responsible for the pain and suffering of millions of people in this country. This murder, this targeted assassination of Brian Thompson, it's had the desired effect. Which, here's the thing, it looks like this is exactly what this dude Luigi wanted. He wrote on his bullet casings, that deny, depose, defend, right? He wrote that on his bullet casings because he knew those were going to be found and he knew that the cops were going to like put that out there. He left a backpack in Central Park full of Monopoly money. Okay, I think that is a pretty strong message right there. Kills a fucking healthcare CEO of a company that is notorious for denying people's treatments and then leaves a backpack full of Monopoly money. I mean, that's some symbolic shit right there. Even the dumbest fucking people out there can understand that shit, right? And it's definitely spurned the conversation. And like people out there are just like, yeah, fuck the health insurance companies. And I'm seeing news stories about how like various investigators and internet sleuths, the kind of people that help cops track people down over the internet, stuff like that, they were like refusing to help. Apparently people out there are like donating. They want to pay this guy's legal bills. They're calling him a hero. Like there was a huge outpouring on the internet of just people like fucking, rooting him on. And like, yeah, we're not going to fucking try to help him. We're not going to try to help catch him or none of that. And lots of jokes, people saying, oh, my thoughts and prayers have been denied service or some shit like that. Or, right? That kind of thing. And it's because getting screwed by healthcare companies is something that cuts across political lines. We've all experienced it. Whether you're a leftist or you're a rightward person, or if you're a MAGA person, or if you're a progressive or whatever, we all get screwed by the corporations and especially the healthcare companies. and especially United Healthcare. United Healthcare is the largest healthcare company in the world. You know, this company makes something like $400 billion a year, something fucking ridiculous like that. They have the largest market share among all of the private health insurances in the United States. And they also have the largest rate of denying service, which is at 37%. And if you think about that, what does that mean? Like when somebody comes and they need to collect on their health insurance, 37% of the time, United Healthcare tries to not pay out. And this is like what's wrong with our fucking system. Healthcare is something that you need to survive, okay? It's not like a PS5 or even a car or a phone. It's like, yeah, okay, you need those things, but if you don't have a car or a phone, it's not like you'll die. You just might not get a job or some shit. If you don't go to the doctor, if you don't get the healthcare you need when you need it, you will die. And this is how this company makes money. This company makes money by denying people care. So you pay into it for years and years and years, and you pay those premiums and you pay those dues and all that other shit for years and years. And then the minute you fucking need to use it, they just say, nope, we're not going to pay out. And then you're absolutely fucking screwed. There's no other industry out there where it's legal to just steal from you like that. Because that's what that is. That is stealing from you. When you pay for a service and then that service doesn't fucking like come through when you need it to, they basically stole your money. Because it's not like they deny your service and then suddenly you get all the money back that you paid in for the last 20 years. No, that's not how that works. They keep the money. You just don't get the service, so you get nothing. So they basically stole your fucking money. And this is like legal for some reason. You know, imagine that if you went to buy a car. Let's just say you went to Toyota, right? And you wanted to buy a Prius or whatever. Or I don't know, maybe you want to buy a Ford F-150 truck or whatever fucking car you want to buy, right? And you go and you sign all the paperwork. You put down the money. You do your trade-in. And all of that shit, and you're ready to go. You got the insurance, you got everything all set up, and you're like, all right, where are my keys? And they go, nope, we're not giving you the keys. And you go, wait a minute, well, I just signed all of this shit and I paid you the money. And they go, too bad, sue us. And then you have to sue them in order to get the thing that you paid for. And then you're also still on the hook for the payments, right? And you go, well, fucking, I don't have my car. Why am I giving you fucking payments? And they go, sue us. And then you have to fucking sue them in order to get the thing that you fucking paid for. That's what health insurance is like. You wouldn't tolerate that when you were buying a car. You wouldn't tolerate that if you were buying a sandwich, for fuck's sake. Like if you went to Subway sandwiches and you're just like, you know, let me get a fucking foot-long turkey or whatever and avocado on it and hold the mayo. And you pay them and then they just don't give you the sandwich. What would you do? Would you just walk out and be like, oh, well, I guess I'm not getting my sandwich, right? No. You'd rant and rave and scream and threaten to call the cops and all that shit because that's just straight up fucking thievery. It's like, give me my fucking sandwich or give me my money back. But no, it's for some reason healthcare is allowed to do that. Your health insurance company is allowed to just take your money and not give you any service for it. And then they'll continue to take your fucking money because you don't have a choice. Because you got to have some kind of fucking healthcare. It's absolutely ridiculous. And it's a problem that is unique to the United States. Other countries don't have this problem. And I know that's hard for people in the United States to understand. But in Canada, they don't have this problem. In Britain, they don't have this problem. France, Korea, fucking Mexico has like better health insurance laws than we do. Right? I mean, I don't think Mexico has universal health insurance, but they don't have people getting denied services. Not like it is here. We pay the most money out of pretty much any country like on earth for our health care. And we have consistently lower outcomes than pretty much any other place in the Western world. People in the United States are less healthy. They're more obese. We have a higher infant mortality rate. Medication is way more expensive here than it is in like Europe or Japan or even like South America. Even like Mexico has cheaper fucking like prescription drug prices than we do here, right? India, you can get cheaper fucking medication than you can here. Because the governments of those countries actually care about their people and they do things like enable you to buy like generic versions right? Of like drugs, the shit that's illegal here. It's like you can't do that here because of like patent laws and shit. So I can spend, $80 a month on my fucking high blood pressure medication, which I actually do. I spend $80 a month on that shit. I could get the same medication in Mexico for $3. And that's not a joke. That's like real. Right? That's actually fucking how it is. We have caravans of like old people that go to Mexico to buy generic drugs and bring them back because it's so fucking expensive. How come we never talk about that? How come Fox News is never talking about the caravans of fucking like old people who are forced to go to Mexico in order to get medical treatment? How come they never bring that shit up? This is something that everyone in this country is familiar with. Everyone has experienced this. And when you see a guy, even though when he's doing something which is morally and legally wrong. I mean, I think murdering people is morally wrong. I don't know. Even when you see that, it's kind of like, well, it's sort of hard to have sympathy for this person. It's sort of hard to have sympathy for the victim because this is a guy who profits off of the death and suffering of the American people. This guy, Brian Thompson, made $10 million a year. Apparently, there's a ongoing lawsuit with United Healthcare where they've been accused of using AI, like an AI program, to just automatically deny people's claims. And that lawsuit is still ongoing, so that's not exactly proven, but that's the accusation. And just imagine that, like this AI, which has a 90%, like if it were true, hypothetically, right? If that were actually happening, like, first off, does that surprise anyone? Like, if that were actually true, would it surprise you? Like, no. That's why, because it sounds like exactly the kind of fucking thing they would do. Doesn't it? Sounds like exactly the kind of thing they would do. That they would just use like an automated system to just automatically fucking deny people and then make you jump through all these fucking hoops in order to like appeal it and all that other shit. Because they know that most people won't go through the hassle. Most people don't have the know-how, the time, or the patience to go through the hassle. And it's really only when it's something catastrophic that people will go through the fucking rigmarole in order to actually get their claim heard. And they know that. And every time they deny somebody's healthcare claim, Brian Thompson made more money. That's exactly how it fucking works. And it's like, so am I supposed to be sad that this guy got the whatever karma was fucking coming to him? It's kind of like if I were to hear tomorrow that Vladimir Putin had been assassinated. It's kind of like that, or Kim Jong-il, and it'd be like, oh, gee, somebody shot them or whatever. Oh, that's too bad. Too bad, so sad. Oh, well. Would I really give a shit if somebody blew Vladimir Putin away? Or something like that. Kind of like when Gaddafi. Remember when Colonel Gaddafi got caught and murdered and then they fucking filmed it and all that shit, and Gaddafi died in a pretty horrible fucking way. Did you shed any tears over that? No. Now, I'm not saying that Brian Thompson is the same thing as Gaddafi, right? Brian Thompson was not a terrorist, but what he did hurt people in the same way a terrorist does. And kind of in a worse way, in my opinion, because what he did was legal. And it was legal because he and his industry paid politicians to make it legal. See, the ACA was supposed to stop all this. Obamacare was supposed to stop all this. Wasn't that one of the provisions in Obamacare? Was that they were going to like stop the denial of services? And I think they did for the most part. They stopped the denial for pre-existing conditions. That was one of the big provisions of Obamacare. That's what it was supposed to put an end to that shit. But how come it's still happening? Because over the last 5 years or so, Republicans have weakened Obamacare. And they have. And they got rid of the mandate, which is the first thing, right? Remember the mandate in Obamacare, the ACA? If you didn't have health insurance, then you would have like a certain amount of money taken out of your taxes. I think it was like $700 or something like that. People went fucking nuts. And that was one of the first things that Trump got rid of. And it's like, okay, yeah, I kind of agree with that because it punishes people that can't afford insurance. But at the same time, that mandate was there in order to drive the price of insurance down. Because it was going to fund things like subsidies for people who couldn't afford insurance. Well, if you get rid of that, then you get rid of the subsidies. And then suddenly that kind of gets rid of the entire fucking point of all this shit in the first place. The whole point of the ACA, of Obamacare, was to make healthcare affordable. Well, if you get rid of the funding that makes it affordable, then the shit doesn't work. Premiums go up, and that's exactly why health insurance is so fucking expensive now. That's why health insurance is just as expensive now as it was in 2014 when the ACA was enacted. And they also did lots of other things. One of the major things that the Trump people did in order to fuck up the ACA was remove one of the provisions that said that every health insurance plan had to have a minimum amount of care. So what does that mean? That means that you weren't allowed to just sell shitty plans that were health plans in name only, which was a thing before the ACA, and now it's a thing again, thanks to Donald Trump. Now they can sell these bullshit shitty plans that have like barely any actual service, so that when you actually do need to get something that's expensive, like say back surgery, your health insurance plan just says, nope, that's not covered. That was a thing that the ACA was supposed to prevent. That was a provision that the Republicans removed. Okay, so if you're mad at that, put the blame where the fucking blame belongs. Here's the thing about that, though. It's like the ACA to begin with was shitty. Let's not forget that, okay? It was a shitty idea. It was like a better than nothing kind of idea, okay? Because for-profit healthcare is a crappy endeavor that inevitably leads to these kinds of disparities. I don't see why we can't get it through the fucking American public's thick fucking skulls that single payer is the way that we want to go. I mean, we could just look at every other country on the goddamn planet that uses single payer that doesn't have the same fucking problems that we have. I mean, how many people have to suffer before we learn this lesson? Before we learn that it's like health insurance should not be a fucking commodity. It should be a right. And I think that's what's going on right now. I think people are like getting fed up with that shit. They see what's going on, and this murder of this fucking CEO has kind of just reminded everybody, like, oh yeah, we're all living with this bullshit, and somebody finally did something about it. And it's like, here's the last thing I'm going to say about this, folks, is that I don't like the fact that it took someone getting murdered to bring this to the attention of the general public. And what that says to me is that we have leadership that is severely lacking. If it takes an assassination in order to get a subject in front of the American people, in order to get the populace talking about a particular issue, then that means the people in charge aren't doing their jobs. This also means that the people who are advocates for this issue are not doing their jobs. The healthcare advocates out there, the people who are supposedly on the left, because the right wing in this country doesn't give a flying fuck about you or your healthcare. They don't give a fuck about you. Single payer and universal healthcare is mainly a left issue. People on the left. And we're not doing our jobs. We should be posting and protesting and going on fucking podcasts and shit like that and donating our money and our time and organizing people in order to spread awareness that we can do something about healthcare. And that shit, that fight has died down. It's died down, and people have just sort of accepted, like, okay, well, it sucks. What are we going to do about it? Well, we need to fucking change it. If we want to change it, we need to change it. Okay? Because the healthcare companies are not going to just give up millions and millions of dollars. They're just not going to like say, okay, fine, we'll start treating everybody. I guess I don't need a 27th yacht. No, they're not going to just do it out of the kindness of their hearts. And they're not going to do it because they're afraid. Just because one guy got shot, that doesn't mean that they're all going to suddenly change their minds and realize, hey, we have to do something about healthcare. There was a story about how the week after this guy, Brian Thompson, got blown away in broad daylight, that calls to private security firms went up by like 1,000%. And all of these executives of all of these healthcare companies now, they're hiring bodyguards. That's how they're reacting to this. They're not doing an introspection and saying, hey, why do people fucking hate us so much? They're not doing that. They're hiring bodyguards because they're not going to give up their money. And honestly, all of the protesting we do, like if we go out, if there was a giant protest tomorrow with fucking 50,000 people, in New York or whatever, that wouldn't stop anything either. You know how you stop this, folks? You change the law. That is the only way that you will ever get any kind of healthcare system in this country, is that you have to make it a law. You have to pass a law that says, fuck for-profit healthcare, we're going to single payer. This is how it's going to work. These are the taxes that are going to fund it. This is what's going to happen. And this is how we're going to phase out the private fucking healthcare in this country. And that's the only way it's ever going to change. And the only people that can make that happen is us. I don't know. I mean, I'm glad that people are talking about it again, because it seems like this was a subject that everybody just forgot about. They just forgot about it. They just gave up on it. And it's like, no, man, we shouldn't be giving up. You know, it's like, now's the time to fight. Now when the fascists are taking over the country, this is when you need to fight the hardest. If you want to see this kind of thing happen in your lifetime, then you need to make it fucking happen. Anyway, folks, I think that's all I got. Stay cool, stay safe, and I will see you all later. Adios. Hello, folks. If you like what I do and you want to support the channel, please consider buying something from my Etsy shop, supporting me on Patreon, liking and subscribing, and checking me out across my social media links listed below. Thank you all so much, and see you next time.